It's good to hear. Good to hear that you're well. That you're here for a little bit of relaxation. Going to be discussing some different nail applications. But I wanted to sort out my paper first. This one is slightly different. It's a card. I don't mind. Yeah, somehow the paper's got itself mixed up. This piece of card will come in handy. Because I'll use this sheet to outline what I will be discussing today, which is the different nail applications and their different properties. So me personally, I use 3 different types of nail overlay applications. SNS, acrylic and gel. So SNS is a dip system. Acrylic is a monomer system. This here is SNS powder, SNS white. Looks really super fine. And this here is acrylic white. For a starter it's more white, but that's just a different brand. And possibly, so they say, less fine. But pretty much the same substance. Just milled a little bit more finer for the SNS. which one do I like using more? Well, let's say in terms of easy, gel is definitely the easiest. It goes on like a paint. So it's easy to apply, just paint it on. Maybe do a little bit of shaping. Done. SNS is then the next easy one to do. Paint clear lacquer on, dip the nail in, remove excess, next layer, an activator, pretty easy, pretty simple, and then acrylic. A little bit more tricky because you're dipping a brush into a liquid, dipping into the powder, getting the right water to powder ratio, and then getting a really good application, something that's not too bulky. These are acrylic. At the moment I have acrylic on, and I'm going to be redoing these in a couple of weeks. And if you have any colour suggestions or ideas of what you'd like to see, let me know. So then we have filing, but there's different filings. There's removal, which is what I'm talking about, for when you're moving on to the next step. So taking the colour off the top to put the next colour on. Again, gel is super easy. You get your drill, comes off like butter, soft as butter. And between these two, it's really hard to tell. I don't know which is more. I feel like removing SNS is quite difficult, but acrylic is more firmer, more harder. So probably in that order again. Then you've got designs. What you can do with designs. SNS seems to be quite limited. I'll put that as number 3. Gel is really easy. You can just paint designs on, colours, make all manner of different and interesting designs. But with SNS you can also make 3D art, and you can play around with designs. You're not limited, just slightly different. SNS is somewhat more difficult. In fact, if you look for SNS videos, you'll notice that it's quite hard to find some that are playing around with anything but one colour, one coat. They tend to just choose a colour and stick with that, whereas the SNS videos I've got uploaded, I'm playing around with colours and trying to see if I can be a bit more creative. So then you've got another type of filing, and that's to do with shaping. So that is once you've got the application on and you need to do all the filing to shape, which is easier? Well, firstly, acrylic is more forgiving. You can really go hammer and tong with the filing, getting all of the shapes that you want. And you don't have to worry so much about taking any of the colour off. It's much more easier. Gel and SNS tend to require less filing, less shaping. Depending how you put it on, sometimes I find that the gel layers, I'll put one layer on and it'll be kind of bumpy and lumpy. Then the next layer on, you've got to file it down so that it's smooth again. So gel is easier to shape because you're painting it on quite thin. But at the same time, it's a little bit more easier to remove layers and things, so you've got to be careful about that. So shaping, my favourite to shape is acrylic, because I can just go hammer and tong with it and just get right into the perfections of it. SNS I find quite tricky to perfect the shape of, and gel. Gel's pretty forgiving, so you can play around with different shapes. We have removal, not to be mistaken for removal for an overlay, a rebalance. So you've put your product on, you're growing it out, you do a rebalance, remove the top layer to put the new layer on, and then removal of the nails altogether. I'd say gel is the easiest because it's quite thin. To be honest, I don't think I've ever removed an acrylic off myself in a long while. I usually let them grow out and file it down. But acrylic and SNS, since they're basically a similar product, they're very similar to get off, and they're definitely a little bit more harder to remove than gel, but they're all soaked off. I like to take the top layer off first and then do the soak. And then you've got things like biogel, which are more rubber gels. They literally sort of look and feel like a rubber type of layer. They're quite easy to get off too, nice, easy to soak, yeah, quite gentle on the nail. So what else is there? Let me see. Obviously colours. Massive range of colours. That being said, you can use SNS colours in an acrylic system. So if you didn't have acrylic colours, which they didn't when I first started, you had white, pink, clear. That was it. White, pink, clear. Now we have more choice. You can use SNS with the acrylic monomer. That is where you get a nice SNS colour, dip it in the monomer, apply it to the nail. You can also use glitters with the acrylic system, which I also really love to play around with. SNS not so much, but they're quite sparkly, a lot of the choices as well, so there is that. time-wise, I find gels are quicker because you're just painting them on layer upon layer upon layer. Then SNS, and then acrylic. But other people who have perfected each method will have their own times. Some people who are really good at SNS will be able to do it just like that. I can't click. Some people who are really good at acrylic will have their time down pat. And then gel. Gel, actually, what takes up most of the time is the minutes in between. You've got your little fingertips in the little oven, the little light. That can take a fair bit of time because you might need to do one finger at a time, 2 fingers at a time. That can take time. And as for decorating, again, gels are easy to decorate. SNS doesn't necessarily come with a whole decoration type system, but you can paint gel over the top of SNS and acrylic, and in which case you can decorate to your heart's content. I do like a stronger base that I then decorate, so I lean towards acrylic and SNS as a base. So we've also got so this is an example of what gel on my nails is like. So let's say this is the gel and this is my nails. I have quite thin, very bendy, movie nails, always have. So when I put gel on my nails and my nails move, that's what happens. It just separates. So lifting. Again, everybody's different. For me, lifting with a gel, I don't get any lifting here, but I do get lifting here where my tip moves, bends, flexes, does anything. It'll lift for me here. For SNS, I get really fine line lifting here. When I wash my hair and things like that, my hair will get stuck in there. And very similar to acrylic. With acrylic, I think I get the least lifting of all because just kind of a solid base. With that being said, when you flick a nail back, it's less giving, unlike a gel which has got flex to it. So lifting, I say I get the most lifting from gels, which puts that at a number 3. Because 3 is not good. 1 and then 2. So longevity. For me, gels are the least longest of the longevities. I just get too much lifting on the edges. Even with wearing gloves, doing gardening and dishes, I'll still get some slight lifting along an edge. And that's just, I can't get them to stay. I think I just have too flexible a nail. It's it's really a toss-up between these two, between which one lasts longer in between refills. It just depends, because sometimes if you've got a colour on like a red, you can see it's growing out. So I'd say they're pretty even. And then you've got other things like Gel X, which is you're pretty much applying a nail tip to your nail, but instead of using super glue, you're using gel and putting it under a light to get it to stick that way. And those ones there, I mean, you barely need any filing done once you've put the nail on, because it's perfectly shaped. You might shrink it, reshape the side walls a little, but mostly you don't need to file. Once you put the colour on, very little filing involved. And then you've got Sistaco. Sistaco is really kind of just a gel where you're putting a gel layer on, the colour over the top, and then another gel layer, which you can essentially do with any gel. You just need some coloured powders. And I've seen people do things like using eyeshadows. I've got chromes, micas, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know if Sistaco colours are very specific, I think they are, but you still can do similar effects with gel. So yeah, that's kind of my rundown of the different nail applications and my thoughts about each one. Let me know, did I leave anything off of these? Is there another factor in there that you think needs referencing? And which one is your favourite to do yourself or get others to do, or do on others? Let me know your thoughts, and as I said, when I do my refill, let me know if you have any suggestions, and I'll do a bit of filming for that. And you can see me put acrylic on, because I have not got a video of me doing acrylic yet. And aside from that,